So happy to have Sean Bannon here to tell us about all of his achievements. He's only one of fewer than 400 people who've ever completed the triple count of open water swimming. That's across the English Channel, these are in separate swims, across the English Channel, around Manhattan, and across the Catalina Channel in California. He was raised in Winchester and graduated from Winchester High School in 2020 and from UMass Amherst in 2024. He's currently working at Massachusetts General Hospital and is applying to medical school. After his presentation, Sean will take some questions from the audience, but let's get started. So welcome, Sean.
Thank you. Thank you, Caroline, Joe, and Bev, and everybody else for inviting me here today. I'm going to try and put this here. Can everyone hear? That good? Is this for the audio here or for the...
This is for the audio here.
Okay, I'll talk loud. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here today. Thank you to Caroline, Bev, and Swim Winchester, the whole foundation. I really appreciate the invitation. My name is Sean. I grew up right here in Winchester, like some of you here, like my siblings here today. I was a Lynchy 5 through K, K through 5, excuse me, and then went to McCall, WHS, and then UMass, like Caroline said. I've got 3 younger siblings here, 2 of which are here today. One of them's at school. Guess he doesn't like me as much, but that's okay. They all followed the same path, though, K through 12. And we've all gone on to do our own individual things thus far. But in my time here today, I want to take you through part of my journey from growing up here in Winchester, but swimming in Woburn, to UMass Amherst, to the White Cliffs of Dover, to the pristine Hudson River waters, and the dark Pacific Ocean. But first, I want to provide a bit of background into my family and my upbringing. Now, both my mom and dad were multi-varsity sport athletes, captains of teams with nicknames that I still don't really understand that are thrown around at different events. But athletics have always been a really big part of our family. And growing up, I know one of the first memories that I have of being a conscious little kid was going to watch my mom run the Boston Marathon. This must have been in the 10s at some point, I'm not sure. But she had each of her children's names inked onto one of her limbs, so Sean, Molly, Maeve, Ryan. And this was long before I understood the feat that she was accomplishing and the feat that is the Boston Marathon and just the power of sport in general. But standing there with all my siblings, handing out water cups to the tens of thousands of runners was just a surreal experience. But before I was even old enough to start following in their footsteps and playing sports, I needed to learn how to swim first. And I learned to do that at the Boys and Girls Club in Woburn. And I continued to swim with them on and off throughout high school. Ironically, no one else in my family is aquatic by any means. They can all swim, not discrediting anybody, but no one's a boater, no one's a swimmer. So swim meets were new for my family. And they can be very long, 6 hours sometimes. If you swim at the start and at the end, you're just sitting around all day, which is very, very boring sometimes. But during my time at WHS, I played soccer, volleyball, and of course swam. But as time went on and commitments were dragging me in different directions, that dwindled down to just swimming. And for those of you who don't know, the WHS swim team practices at Medford High. So I was always up at 4 in the morning, ready to take on the day and super energized, right? Now, I've always been very introverted growing up, especially in high school. And swimming is not a very social sport. So I did struggle to make connections on the team. And it was hard, especially at 4 in the morning again. I'm tired, I'm cranky, I'm not sleeping. But I was always loved the stoic aspect of swimming and the individuality that everyone brought to it. So I swam. I swam for 3 years. In my junior year, I tried out to be captain. Now, I was already very nervous, a little insecure about it, but I was also dealing with an illness. I would imagine from waking up at 4 in the morning, in the cold, eating like a high school boy, not getting enough recovery, but I did not go to practice that morning. And my speech was delivered on my behalf by the coach. And needless to say, I did not get elected captain. So I had it very set in my mind that I needed this for my college application, which is not the reason you should be trying out for captain. But it hurt. And I was disappointed, but not very surprised. Looking back, I should have done things differently. But I always remember lying in bed at 4 and dreading the wake up before that and not wanting to get up. But I would always come back to these big swims in the English Channel and different things like that, and always wanting to prove not just to others, but to myself, that I was capable of this greatness. And that is where that idea first started to grow. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic happened at the end of my senior year of high school. So swimming kind of went to crap anyways. That didn't really happen. So I didn't have to worry about that. But right after that, I had been starting to hit my stride at the gym. And I was learning how to lift weights, get stronger, really feeling how to move my body and learning about performance and limits. And of course, that also went to crap too. Everything closed. Now, freshman year, instead of living on campus at UMass, I did a Zoom semester, is what I'll call it, in York, Maine with my best friend. And randomly one day, I just decided to do an Ironman triathlon. It was kind of a life goal, but I didn't need a gym to run or swim or bike, so I was like, might as well make the most of this situation. And it had always been a life goal, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this now. Now, I competed in Ironman Maryland as the second youngest competitor when I was 19. So that means there was still someone younger than me kicking everybody's butt. I think he beat me too. Crazy guy. And I made probably every single mistake in the book. No nutrition plan, no brick workouts. I thought wetsuits were just for surfing. I didn't know you could swim in them. So that was a big shocker to me. The swim was hot though, so you couldn't even wear the wetsuits. Jellyfish. It also never occurred to me that 2,000 people starting a swim at the same time will lead to lots of punching in the face, kicking in the face, pulling the leg, but had to figure that out as I went. But I distinctly remember the feeling of standing there with the 2,000 people around me. Everybody's a little nervous, shaking, right? And we're just watching the sun rise over the Chesapeake. And that feeling was just addicting. And I kind of leaned into that. Now, I finished that Ironman. Barely, didn't feel great, but it definitely shifted my own perception of my limits and what I was capable of. And things like the English Channel didn't seem so far-fetched. And that's when this dream started to grow a bit more. Now, another person I want to talk about is my uncle and godfather, Fred. Fred was my mom's oldest brother, my dad's childhood best friend. And like the two of them, he was also a great athlete, varsity basketball. And he had his whole life ahead of him. And a car accident when he was younger than I am here today left him paralyzed from the waist down. All change in an instant like that. And growing up with Fred in my life, I was often reminded of the privileges that we all enjoy and too often than not take for granted. A healthy body, a healthy mind, and being able to do all of these things that others are not always guaranteed. And I remember how proud he was when I finished my first Ironman, and I was really excited to tell him all the things I had planned. That summer, I signed up to swim the English Channel. Now, booking is done 2 years in advance, and with such an ambitious goal, I was very scared to tell others. This means I have to commit to swimming this week window, 2 years in advance, not get injured, and somehow do this. My longest swim to date was a 2-mile Ironman in 80-degree water, so I had a long way to go, that was for sure. Now, post-COVID, school resumed, and at school I studied kinesiology, and I learned a lot about physiology, epidemiology, all the ologies, but learned a lot about human performance, and I had lots of fruitful experiences at that point to draw from. And that made the learning a lot more impactful. And during all my studies, I would often think of Fred, and would often reflect on the privileges, again, that we have every day waking up, and the ability to learn and use that information to help others. Now, I started really training for the English Channel in the winter of 2024, and my attempt was in June, so I had around 6 months to really lock in and get going. And at that point, Fred's quality of life had been declining over the last couple of years. Hospital trips became more and more frequent, and I remember the last time that I saw him in the hospital, his arms were bruised on either side just from different tests and infusions that needed to be done. An endotracheal tube snaked his way down his throat and was pumping his chest up and down. These were all just grim reminders of how fragile that he had become, this juxtaposed with what I was trying to do. And despite all of medicine's desperate attempts to save him, he was gone just a few days later. And during my trainings, I would often get in bad mental headspaces. I would suffer in the cold. Sometimes it's 30, 40, 50 degrees. Questioning, why am I doing this, right? What is my motivation behind this? Now, I think goals are great. Goals are very important. But I think without a purpose behind those goals, without a why, not achieving those goals that don't feel as bad. And it's that purpose that keeps you going when you don't want to go. And I dedicated that swim to him. And I kept thinking to myself, I get to do this. And my body that I exist in is a privilege to have. And this temporary suffering will pass. Now, I flew to England a few weeks after graduating college. And I had the privilege of delivering my school's commencement speech. And I talked about Fred and his impact on me and the importance of using our privileges and abilities to impact change in others. But now here I am in Dover. It's been 2 years. Now I have to actually do this. Now, the English Channel is a 21-mile stretch of water that connects England to France. It was first swum by Captain Matthew Webb 150 years ago this summer, so 1875. And Captain Webb swam for 22 hours, covered 39 miles, and he swam mostly breaststroke because freestyle was barbaric and un-European at the time, so he kept his head above the water. He was fueled by cod liver oil, beef tea, brandy, coffee, and ale. So for all you athletes out there, take notes on this. Today, it is also the world's busiest shipping lane. 500 to 600 ships pass through every day. And the success rate varies greatly every year. But the attempts usually fall in the July-August window when the waters are kind of warmer and the tides are calmer. But every swimmer will face northward currents at the start, and those will switch to southerly currents around halfway through if you time it right. So everyone ends up swimming a sinusoidal curve, and you swim a lot more than 21 miles. Now, the rules of open water swimming are pretty simple. It's pretty easy. Cap, goggle, swimsuit. That's it. No wetsuit, no touching the boat, nothing like that. So now I have to do this. My swim was set to start at 3:30 in the morning, and I figured this out a few hours before, so I had to be on my toes the whole day. But we got to the launch at 3 in the morning. So now I get out of the boat, and I have to swim 100 yards to England, and I'm standing in England, covered in this grease crap all over me, right? The white cliffs are in front of me, looking up hundreds of feet. I just turn around and take in the moment. And I got in the water and started swimming. And it's very choppy leaving the island, the country, just because the water comes down and the rocky coast will cause the currents to come up and down. Those of you here who swim know how swimming is a very hypnotic, rhythmic sport sometimes. You kind of get in the moment and you lose track of time, which is hard to do in the chop. But in the moment, I was fresh. I was feeling great. I'm really swimming the English effing channel right now. Like, I've made it this far. Now I just have to get to the other side. The sun started to rise a bit more. It's a bit earlier over there. And around 50 minutes in, I could see probably hand distance away. And as with good swimming form, my head is down. I'm not looking forward. So I didn't see when a big compass jellyfish just drifted by my face, which definitely woke me up, got the adrenaline pumping. My heart sank a little bit, my stomach too, but I was prepared for this. I swam for 5 more hours until hour 6. I get my first ibuprofen to help. I would need to swim 6 more hours till I get the second one, but that never came. I was like, okay, I'm almost done. This is good. My whole crew was watching me at this point, so when I would breathe left, I would see them all standing there. They looked a bit concerned, though, so I was getting concerned. What I didn't know is that it would take 3 more hours than expected. Tides were different that day. That's just the name of the game. And the ibuprofen was lost at sea somehow. I don't know how that happened, but this is what I trained for, right? And because of the curvature of the Cap of France, the currents whip around it, and it becomes the hardest at the end. This is why it's sometimes called the Everest of swims. Most people fail right at the end. The air is the thinnest, the water's the fastest. But I got this. And in the hours before I would land, I thought of Fred. And again, just trying to live in the moment. Unsure if I would get pulled or not, I chose to just sit there and think of how lucky I am to do this, to make it this far. 15 hours and 3 minutes later, I finally crawled onto the shores of France. It kind of hurt to breathe. My diaphragm was sore from just resisting the external pressure of the water. Shoulders were obviously very sore. And my chest kept cramping up every time I would cross my body. But it was over. The ride back to England took 3 hours, but it felt like 30 minutes because whatever headspace I was in was just, time was flying by. And I was just catching up with my crew and wondering what the hell have they been doing for 15 hours, because that was definitely not entertaining. And it was great. We actually saw a dolphin or two on the way back, which was cool. And in the end, the English Channel was exactly what I wanted. It was cold, challenging, moments that I truly loved and appreciated. And then moments that I was screaming into the water and puking all over myself and cursing myself for doing something so stupid. But I finally finished it. And I celebrated briefly, but the job wasn't totally finished. I had my sights set on 20 bridges in Catalina. And in the meantime, I set out to lose my channel blubber, which I had gained around 25 pounds to help with buoyancy and heat retention. But I was starting to feel sluggish, so I needed to get rid of that. Soon after that, I started my current job at MGH. And I started preparing my med school applications. And it was at MGH, where we work in GI in the phase 1 trials, that I came across a patient within the first couple weeks I was there. The patient's name was Abraham. Now, in school and all these epidemiology classes, we learned that colorectal cancer in young adults has been rising at alarming rates. And paradoxically so. We're getting smarter and wealthier, and we can treat all these different diseases with targeted therapies, but this is rising for some reason. We studied the trends and looked at the stats and learned how to read these graphs, but it wasn't really until I sat face to face with this 22-year-old man that all became real. Now, Abraham was diagnosed with colorectal cancer at age 22. And he should have been worrying about his senior year of college or his weekend plans or what he was going to do with his career. But instead, he was sitting next to me. And I was talking to him about our research study and if it was okay to collect blood at his appointments to try and do research on the disease that he was fighting in that very moment. And in that moment, I didn't feel like a researcher. I felt like another 22-year-old just confronted with this sobering truth that cancer doesn't always wait, and it doesn't care how young you are or your background or anything like that. And that really stayed with me. And it's changed the way that I think about my work, my goals, and even the challenges that I take on outside of the hospital. And I've always believed that endurance sports are more than about crossing a finish line, getting a medal, or anything like that. It's about resilience of the mind, pushing past those limits that you make that aren't really real, and finding a purpose in the struggle. And that's when I started my Catalina swim fundraiser at MGH. I fundraised for the Young Adult Colorectal Cancer Center and the Lifestyle Medicine program. At the time, I had submitted my 20 Bridges swim application. You have to apply to this swim. I wasn't certain if I was getting it or not, so it kind of came as a last second. Congrats, you got in. Now you have to swim 30 miles around Manhattan in a couple weeks. So, okay, now I need to do this. Pause everything else. Now, the 20 Bridges swim is a 28.5 mile complete circumnavigation of Manhattan. 3 rivers, 20 bridges, 1 swim nonstop. Same rules apply, cap, goggle, swimsuit. And you enter the water near Battery Park at the bottom. You swim up the East River. The tides kind of shift and you go up to the Harlem River, and then you bang that hard left down the Hudson. I had to take antibiotics before, so I didn't try to mitigate any water that I would swallow while swimming. And I also learned that my swim was going to start at 9 p.m. a few days before. So that would mean I would be swimming entirely at night, which was something new. Now, due to the river currents, 2/3 of the rivers are current assisted, so it's a net helpful effect. And during the first hour or so, I was swimming 32nd 100 meters, which is around 7.5 miles per hour. Record-breaking speed. Of course, it doesn't count in the river, but it was great, feeling good. Waters were warm, cool sights, obviously, no problems. And then I saw an NYU med sign, and I was really taken out of the moment. I was like, what am I doing with my life? I'm swimming in the Harlem River at 2 a.m. right now, swallowing this gross water. Like, is this really what I want to be doing? And I really was taken out. I threw up all over myself after that and felt a lot better. I think it was some GI issue or something. But we turned down the Hudson River and shot straight down. And after 8 hours later, I was crawling back onto the boat, very happy to be done. I saw 0 trash the entire time, probably because I couldn't see anything. But I think the night swim was a blessing in disguise, which was nice. The one thing I did hit in the Hudson was a tree log, 30 feet long in the middle, hit me right in the head. I think I'm still recovering from that, but that was definitely a surprise. But besides that, I did not get sick. Very good. A few weeks later, I had to swim the Catalina Channel now. Catalina Channel is a bit different. Comparatively to the English Channel, it's a 20-mile channel swim from the island to the mainland. And most solo swims start around 10, 11 at night. So again, night swim, but this time instead of Manhattan, which doesn't get too dark at night, it's 20 miles off the coast in the Pacific Ocean. So I had to be mentally prepared for that. The Catalina Channel was first swum in 1927 by a teenager in 15 hours and 44 minutes. And as I was preparing for this swim, I thought of Abraham, I thought of Fred again. And all the fundraising I'd been doing for the year, I had been actively advertising my swim, which is something I hadn't really done before just because of superstition and nerves, right? If I'm telling everybody about this and then I fail, it's pretty embarrassing, right? But I put myself out there and I was trying to advertise and raise money for these causes that were really important to me. I was feeling confident and feeling good. We left the marina in Long Beach, and it took around 2.5, 3 hours of really bumpy, choppy water to get to the island. Now, ironically, I get very seasick, so I was trying to sleep in the stowaway cabin or whatever it is, and I couldn't really get rid of that feeling of anxiety, excitement. I read something recently that physiologically those feelings are the same, it's just your interpretation of it, so I'll call it excitement instead of anxiety. Now, we arrived at the island and watched the first swimmer leave. And the first swimmer was crewed by Diana Nyad. I don't know if people have heard of her. But it was really cool to be on the water with these Hall of Fame swimmers. And I jumped in around 10:30 p.m. Again, same deal. Swam to shore, cap, goggles, swimsuit. And this was a darkness I hadn't really experienced before. I could barely see my hand in the water. And as I'm swimming to shore, there's a light from the boat that's illuminating my path, or it's trying to. As the waves are swelling, it kind of passes through my vision. And for a brief moment, it illuminates the depths of where I am. And the water clarity is beautiful, tens, maybe 100 feet down. But I can see these kelp forests, these big orange fish, these jagged rocks right below me, and then complete darkness again as it would pass. Now, leaving the island, I was accompanied by dolphins and seals, fly fish, some kelp tickling me in the dark, which was a little spooky, and bioluminescence lit up every one of my strokes. Every kick, every stroke. I couldn't see the fish below me, but they would sense me coming over them and swim away really fast, and they would disrupt that algae and create these beautiful bioluminescent artworks. And it was beautiful. I thought of Fred again, I thought of Abraham, and all those people that had helped me get where I am today. 11 hours later, I was on the shores of sunny California. It was a textbook swim. Tides were great, water was calm. And now here I am, Triple Crown, finished. But I don't really feel any different. I'm still the same Sean. I think swimming has helped with many things besides staying in shape and meeting cool new people. It's helped with confidence. It's helped with community building. And above all, it just reminds me what a true privilege it is to have this healthy body. And I think with that comes responsibility. It's our job to use these gifts and privileges that we all have, not just for personal achievement, but to lift others up and to build community and to bring awareness to causes that are bigger than ourselves. Now, the ocean's very unpredictable. It's vast, it's scary, but I think that's also what makes it beautiful. And I think we must keep moving forward, stroke by stroke, community by community, kick by kick, person by person, always striving to make that difference. So if I leave here tonight, I want everybody to take away one thing, and that's just to not forget the privileges that you enjoy. And don't take any of that for granted. Thank you. I just want to quickly say that all of these swims are solo on paper, but it truly takes a community to do them. I have channel boats following me, siblings on the boat, family supporting me from ashore, friends from afar, making sure every calorie, every ounce of water is right to make sure I can do what I do. So a big thank you to everybody who is not here today and that has supported me from behind the scenes. I really appreciate everybody. Thank you.
thank you so much. We have plenty of time for questions.
Sure.
Please. Yep.
I have a question. Going around Manhattan and across the English Channel, those are, a lot of boats, and you said that the English Channel has a lot of 500 boats going through a day. Were there any boats in the water? How'd they keep them? They close the channel for you?
Definitely. They do not close the channel for you, no. Part of the boat that you charter is their job to communicate with the other boats. And especially in Manhattan, I think the kayaker that I was with was saying that the weekend of the 4th of July, they expect like 500 jet skiers, which typically jet skiers are not paying attention to swimmers in Manhattan, rightfully so. But so as part of that, logistically speaking, is they will direct boat traffic, tell me where to go. Different channels some of them have just boats, some of them are boats and kayaks, so everyone's very communicative about that. Yeah. Any other questions at all? Yeah, go ahead.
If you had your head down and in the water mostly, how did you navigate?
It's a great question. That's another thing that the boats are helpful for. This is their job. There's a English Channel Swimming Federation, Catalina Channel Swimming Federation, and part of their job is the boat traffic safety, but also helping navigate you.
Do they call out, or are you in voice communication?
Voice communication, but they're also at my side. So
How far away?
in the English Channel, they were around 5 yards away, depending on the swells further away. Manhattan, there was a kayaker that was probably as far away from me to the front row by now. And they also help with nutrition, right? They can toss whatever they want to you. You can't touch them, but they can throw whatever they want at you, which, you gotta be nice to them so they don't throw anything, no bananas at the head or something like that. But, so you sight with them on your side. Yeah.
How and where do you train for that? Swimming.
Great question. I try to go in the open water as much as I can because nothing really replicates the open water like the open water. I think swimming here in Massachusetts is great for English Channel type of swimming because it gets cold. And that's not very fun to do all the time. But when the ocean gets too cold, Walden's beautiful, Mystic Lakes are beautiful. There's Facebook groups with hundreds of people, sometimes thousands of different pond specific or just open water specific, which has opened my eye to this new world. Boston open water swimming, Walden open water swimming, Mystic Lake open water swimming. But also, if I have to swim in a pool, I'll swim in a pool. MIT has a great pool. Some in Somerville. There's no pool in Winchester yet, but maybe. Yeah.
How many hours what's typical training?
Great question. I'll do period blocks of 4 weeks. So the first two weeks, is a recovery week. So we can use the English Channel, for example. It's like 10 to 20 kilometers. Speed week is the second one, where I'll work on speed, different interval stuff, trying to maintain that as much as possible. It's hard to keep that up with all the volume, but that's around 15 to 20, 25K. The next 2 weeks are build and bulk weeks, and those are the weeks that will increase in volume throughout. So recovery and speed will always stay the same volume-wise, and then the build and bulk will increase throughout. So the peak week for English Channel, it's hard to compare open water to pool, so I'll go based on time. So I'll try and do 2 swims back-to-back to replicate doing it one day. It's hard to schedule in an 8-hour swim in my day sometimes, so I would do an 8-hour swim one day and then 7 hours the next day at the most. Yeah, so I'll have weekly volume goals based on time and distance, depending on what I can do. Again, just being flexible with everything. Yeah, go ahead.
What's the recovery like after a swim? How long does that take?
Honestly, what hurt me the most was the sunburn I had on my butt that I forgot to cover with the sunscreen. And I'm trying to sleep. I can't roll on my shoulders because that's going to make me cry. I can't roll over here. That's going to make me cry. I have these sunburns on my back. It's a few days. It's not terrible because just swimming is a lot lower impact than running or cycling or something like that. And as long as you're on top of your nutrition, a few days, a week, I tried to swim the day after, which they recommend to keep everything moving. Wasn't pretty, but it happens. Yeah.
Do you ever swim the same distance that you're going, you're aiming for before you do the final?
That's a great question. Typically not in one go, just because of timing. So in those bulk week examples, like I'll try to swim around 2 miles an hour, depending on conditions. Sometimes it can be 7.5 miles an hour, depending on the tides, right? Or you can be swimming in place for 3 hours. But typically we'll try and do more volume than the swim in that certain week. So it's kind of different than marathon training, right? What I've heard marathon training is, you never really race beyond that target volume in one given day or something. But again, the low impact and just the low impactness of swimming allows you to recover a bit faster. So you can go and do a longer swim session. And again, as long as, recovery is optimized, you can swim as well the next day. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want to do the triple crown multiple times?
I don't think so. I think they were all very cool, very fun. Each offered its own different challenges, but there's still so much more to do, so many new things to try and explore,
Such as?
I'm currently training for the world's hardest triathlon, which is occurring in July of 2026. It's called the Arc to Arc Triathlon, and it connects London to Paris. So stick with me here for a second. You run 87 miles from London to Dover, swim the channel again, and then you bike the 180 miles to Paris. Now, to date, only around 60 people have done it, and the youngest person was 25. So I'm 23 right now. Hopefully we'll be starting school next summer. So this would be a cool cherry on top to my sports career before real life starts, and I have to be a real adult. But we'll see. Maybe we'll sprinkle in some other events before that.
Which swim was your favorite and you think was the most rewarding experience?
I think the English Channel is definitely my favorite. It was definitely more type 2 fun. I think Catalina was more type 1 fun, sunny, dolphins, warm water. English Channel, I was definitely not thinking about quitting, but worried about being pulled from the water and worried about if I could make this or not. That was my first open water swim, which I don't recommend, so I didn't have really much confidence going into it versus the other ones. I was like, I can't do this. I've done this before. Like, I had more composure and confidence in myself. But yeah, good question, Molly. Yeah?
Do you have a coach?
I do have a coach. Great question. Craig Lewin, who is also a Triple Crown swimmer, coached me through the English Channel. And then these last 2 swims, we kind of worked together. I would like to learn and practice my own programming and training methods. So I would send him stuff, he'd review it, and we'd talk together. It's more of a collaborative approach to the training because I just find it interesting. I like to learn about it. He's based in Swampscott, I think, endurance swimming. He does other things besides English Channel coaching, so if anybody wants a coach, highly recommend. Yeah, okay.
How will the training change for the London to...
That's a great question.
Still got to swim the channel.
I'm working on figuring that out. But from my understanding, it's mostly the same channel swimming training, but just obviously more running. I think the goal is to get to Dover in as least of a beat-up state as possible. You can wear a wetsuit in this swim. I'd prefer to not. But again, you have to deal with your thermoregulation being all off from running 3 marathons and learning how to cope with that. And just also nutritionally. Like, I have my swimming nutrition plan pretty down. I like it. But how does that change with running? And can my stomach tolerate the same things after running for that long in the water? And those are different things that I have to kind of lock down. Lots of volume, lots of early mornings and late nights, lots of eating.
Will you do any, so you mentioned that you've done the Ironman before, which is like the marathon distance. Have you done any kind of ultra runs, like
100K or 100 mile?
I have not.
Will you do any of that before jumping into it?
Yes, I definitely will. The thing is with running that I found hard is just the recovery of it, right? Like the volume that I'm swimming, I can't just do that running and expect to recover the same way. Just muscle breakdown, nutritionally. Also, like you said, I don't have that experience with the running. The swimming, I have a better understanding of it, how my body responds, how my mind responds to everything as well, because it's mostly mind over anything, right? So that's definitely the top of my priority list, is to learn those things. Sure.
Do they make you rappel down the cliff when you get to the
I don't know. That's a good question. That is a good question. Sure, go ahead.
Reading about your swim across the channel, and they said that, I can't remember how many started, but there were only 2 of you that finished that day. What do you think makes the difference between someone who completes these swims and all the attempts that are made?
Sure. So the way that the channel swimming works is each swimmer has their own boat if it's a solo. Relays are a bit different. You could have a 2-person relay, or I think an 8-person is the most they go up to. It could be more. So each of those swimmers has their own boat. And I think the hardest thing that it comes down to is just the cold. There was this swimmer, I think he was from India, national champion swimmer, very fast, but the waters weren't really cold near him, and he was just talking about being worried about the cold. Now, he could probably swim that distance in a pool in warm water in under 10 hours, but if you're not used to the conditions that you'll face in those swims, that might be the make or break moment. That's why it's so nice swimming around here, where the conditions can sometimes suck and the water can be cold, but you have to train in what you're going to expect. That's why Southern California was such a nice surprise. I was like, this is lovely. Like, it's like this all the time, right? But again, I think no 2 swims are the same. Like, it could be mirror flat the whole time, and it could be 6-foot swells, which is still a swimmable day, and you'll still try and swim that. So that's what makes it so unpredictable and challenging. That's what makes it fun as well. Yeah.
So you said the longest swim you did before the English Channel was 2 miles, is that right, the Ironman?
In the trainings, I did more, but when I signed up for the English Channel, that was the longest swim I had done to date. A little over-ambitious, and my frontal lobe isn't still fully developed yet. I'm still under that cutoff, so maybe that's what it is.
Confidence that you could do the channel.
Why not was kind of the mentality. But even just like the Ironman took not as long, but I was able to do that, making all those mistakes. So just kind of reflecting on my mistakes and failures, like if I learn from this and have a proper nutrition plan, maybe get a coach, maybe figure out how to do this before I just jump right into it, I could be more successful. Definitely learning experience, though. Yeah?
These swims are not inexpensive. Do you have a way to tell us what it costs to
Sure.
organize all these swims?
The swims can range. They're usually a couple $1,000s. Most of all that money is just in chartering the boat, and it's mostly safety reasons. People die swimming these swims. There was an English Channel swimmer who died a few years ago, I believe. So it's in chartering these vessels, making sure that you're safe the entire time. And obviously they vary in popularity, but something like the English Channel everybody wants to do. It's very iconic. They are expensive sports, though. That's a good point. Surprisingly so.
Well, we used to think it was a cheap sport because it's just bathing suit, cap, and goggles.
Exactly, that's what we're going to say. Yeah, bathing suit is pretty cheap. Goggles, cap, don't have to worry about that. And then traveling. Again, I recognize that privilege that I have to be able to do that. Another reason I probably wouldn't want to do them all again is financially irresponsible decision making. Yeah.
Okay. How cold was cold in the English Channel? Give me Fahrenheit.
It was around 58 on the English side, and then it warmed up to 61, 62-ish. It's not a cold that like burns you when you jump in, but it's a cold that kind of seeps into the muscles and bones after 15 hours. So it's definitely, again, more mental training as well, knowing how you'll respond to that. I know when I'll go on training swims in the 50s, I'll probably shiver for the first 2 hours. If I'm still shivering after that, that's a problem. I need to get out, but most likely it will go away. That's just something, one of the weird quirks you learn about yourself doing it. Yeah, good question. Yeah, go ahead.
What's the most you swum in a pool?
I think 6 hours. At UMass, it was hard to get to the open water without a car, so I was stuck in the pool, and sometimes the pool would only be open for 3 hours. There was 2 pools, so I'd have to swim for 3 hours, run in my bathing suit to the other pool that was like a quarter mile away, and jump in and keep swimming. So all the lifeguards thought I was insane, but I also lifeguarded, so they knew I was insane beforehand. But probably 6 hours. Very boring.
I coach a lot of swimming, and I always said, distance swimmers.
I can attest to that, yeah.
Distance runner, you know, I can look around, talk to somebody, but a distance swimming in a pool is
I can't, yeah.
you and
It's mind-numbing sometimes. Yeah.
two ends.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you go through many goggles during any of the swims, or is it sort of one pair?
I just use one pair. I heard a stat that was like every minute you're treading water in the English Channel is equivalent to 5 minutes of swimming. So you don't want to stop at all. Also, mentally with other sports, like you stop, you take a second. It might feel good in the moment, but starting up again is not going to be easy, especially when it's so cold. You want to keep that core warm. So I just used a clear set of them because, again, it started at night. I had like 3 or 4 pairs with me just in case. I think I had 3 or 4 bathing suits too, for some reason, just in case, but can never be too prepared. Yeah.
Were you the youngest?
No, there are lots of people crazier than me. Teenagers. I don't know how they get into it because I just learned that this was a thing a few years ago. So they must have parents that are very...
They were successful?
Yes. Probably faster than me too, way faster. Yeah.
And do you know who the oldest is? Just out of curiosity.
I do not know them, no. You can look it all up though, it's all documented somewhere. People are very inspiring. Yeah.
How many calories do you burn in this swim? And what kind of nutrition allows you to get enough calories?
Sure. I don't know burn. I wear a watch that will give me estimates. I don't know how accurate they are, but definitely the water temperature plays a role in that. Like you burn a lot more in the cold water after a while than really hot water. My nutrition plan for the English Channel was 450 calories every hour, mixed in with 10 ounces of water, split up into 2 sessions. So it was 5 ounces of warm water with like 225 calories in it, roughly. Again, sometimes I'll try and drink it all and then it comes right back up. Or I don't have time to get it all down. In a perfect world, that's what it was. And then I tested it a bit more. In the most recent swim, I did 500 calories every hour. And you know, being in tune with your hunger cues, like sometimes I'll have a really weird craving for a salty cheeseburger 3 hours in. So I'm probably not getting enough salt, maybe. Maybe I should drink some of the salt water or eat some more food, right, beforehand. But that's what's worked so far.
What kind of food has these calories?
Sure. These were all liquid feeds. So it was a mixture of goo-roctane, which has calories, caffeine, amino acids, and other stuff. And then rhino fuel, which is just straight carbohydrates, nothing else. And then a mixture of those two. Trying to ramp up caffeine and amino acids as the swim progresses to try and mitigate muscle breakdown. Also trying to not drink as much caffeine throughout the entire thing. You know, if you're drinking 50 milligrams every hour, but it's 15 hours, that adds up. So trying to be aware of that stuff. Some people, you can do whatever you want. Some people like a cupcake when they're halfway through, or a Big Mac, you know, you can do that. It just didn't really work with me. Just keep it simple. Yeah.
So, Sean, does your name get put on some list as the number, whatever person to
Sure. There's an online list, I think, but that's it. There's no medals or trophy. I know I did all this for a stupid list. It's not worth it. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
You mentioned, so obviously during the competition swim, for I'm sure like insurance reasons and safety, you're accompanied by boats and charters and all this, but like for the long open swims you do, how do you stay safe in open water?
That's a great question. When I can, I'll try and have a kayaker with me. We'll borrow friends' kayaks. But that's also a big ask, to ask. My sisters have been in the kayak for 5 hours sometimes, and they're probably like, what the F is he doing in there? But it's also helpful for navigation-wise. If I'm at the beach, I'll, hug the shore, always with the pull buoy. At Walden or the Mystic Lakes, trying to hug the coast of it so I can also sight easily. But that's mostly how. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Does the same kayaker go with you for the 15 hours?
There's no kayaker for the English Channel, just a boat.
Oh, sorry. For the 20 bridges.
Yes, same guy. They hire their own because, again, the traffic can be so complicated that they know the route, they know everything. He knew the exact time that he would need to get out for a bathroom break. And he told me all this beforehand. He's like, I'm going to leave you, go to bathroom break. This other boat's going to be with you. He came back in like 5 minutes, well-oiled machine. And then Catalina, I had 3 kayakers that would cycle through because, again, that could be a 20-hour swim. That can be as challenging as the English Channel, depending on the conditions. So I wouldn't want to kayak for 20 hours, but it's a big ask. Any other questions?
I'll ask one that I was debating whether to ask, but
Sure.
you mentioned it's expensive. So for those of us who might want to help you, is there a way for us to do that?
Sure, that's a great question. Thank you. I've started a GoFundMe for this Arc to Arc challenge. I'm currently in discussion with different MGH teams because I also would like to do this for awareness and for other causes besides just myself. So I'm in the progress of doing that, but there is a GoFundMe page. Yeah. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.